from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Ranching isn't just confined to the wide open spaces in the West.
Besides the markets, the weather is our biggest challenge. You never know what it's going to bring.
Farmers are giving off some hopeful vibes. See the results of the latest Ag Economy Barometer. As we look ahead to the next growing season,
likely there's going to be some revenue losses in some areas on the soybeans.
And the bottom line crop insurance numbers you need to know right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these feeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Michelle. Year Clinton is on assignment. Harvest is nearing the finish line in many states. The latest crop progress report showing 91% of the corn crop has been harvested. Now that's 16% ahead of the 5-year average. When it comes to soybeans, 94% of the crop has been combined, which is 9% ahead of average. Cotton harvest also picking up pace, now 63% harvested. That's 9 percentage points ahead of normal. The official harvest prices for federal crop insurance were just released by the Risk Management Agency. They're based on the average prices during October and came in well below 2023 and the base prices set back in February. For corn, the harvest price is $4.16 versus the base price of $4.66, so a drop of 50 cents. For soybeans, the harvest price averaged $10.03 versus the base price of $11.55, a sharp $1.52 drop. And the harvest price for confectionery sunflowers was also down $1.50, and oil sunflowers down $1.20, which comes as no surprise to market watchers.
So we've seen that trend in play for quite a while, and now in October we did get a little bit of a bump. It could have been a lot worse. It's still bad enough when you think about, price of corn being down, 11% from spring, and beans, roughly 13%. So the trend has not been our friend, that's for sure.
With the lower harvest price levels, that will trigger some insurance payouts for the 2024 crop.
Likely there's going to be some revenue losses in some areas on the soybeans. Corn, it's just going to depend on, if you had a lot of rain and a lot of drought out or not.
With these prices, margins will be even tighter in 2025, and some may be in the red. So Justina says farmers need to closely manage their cost of production and safety net. The most common policies don't provide enough protection and need supplementation.
A lot of producers will look at the supplemental coverage option, known as SCO, or the enhanced coverage option, ECO. And when you layer on like an ECO and SCO on top of your underlying policy, for most producers, that's going to be able to provide enough coverage to be able to provide a safety net that gets close or can actually go above covering their cost of production for 2025.
Crop insurance is not an expense to scrimp on, and he recommends paying for higher coverage to help guarantee revenue. Plus, it's subsidized, and the ECO subsidy went up for the 2025 crop year. More rain is continuing to push east, stretching all the way from Florida to New England. While out west, snow continues to impact some mountain states. Meteorologist Alyssa Heilman joins us with an update.
Those snowy conditions, because of the colder air that we're seeing in the western United States, you're seeing highs there, 35 in Denver. Very cold because of that cold air coming from the north, and 40s, 50s all in the western United States, but warmer to the east here. We're seeing 76 in Atlanta, 82 in Richmond, 77 in New York City. So again, very warm on the east, cooler on the west, and you're seeing that stark cold front line there that continues to move east throughout the United States as we go later. This is tomorrow morning. Again, those very cool temperatures in the western United States and warmer in the east, but as that cold front moves through, bringing cooler temperatures to those areas that it moves through. Again, 39 is the high or for the low there for tomorrow morning. Now we'll look as we go into tomorrow. We're seeing again still cooler temperatures to the west, but warming a little bit, and then again those cooler temperatures behind that cold front as it continues to move east, bringing some cooler temperatures with it and still keeping some warmer temperatures in the southeastern United States. And here's a shot of harvest from high above. Brian Bueller taking this video. He says harvest is getting close to wrapping up north of West Lafayette, Indiana. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
Help is on the way for Georgia producers impacted by Hurricane Helene. The Georgia State Financing and Investment Commission voting unanimously to spend $100 million, which had been set aside for construction projects or paying off existing debt. Officials estimate the storm caused more than $6 billion in economic losses for the state's agriculture and forestry industries. It's reported cotton, pecan, and chicken farmers saw severe losses, as well as owners of private timberlands. The Georgia Development Authority will get $75 million to provide disaster relief loans to farmers and associated businesses. The other $25 million will be spent to clean up timber losses and other debris. A new survey of farmer sentiment, the Ag Economy Barometer, shows a bit of a rebound. The survey from Purdue University and the CME Group coming in at a rating of 115. That's 27 points higher than September. Survey takers report the biggest driver was an increase in producers' confidence in the future.
The current condition index was up 19 points compared to last month. That still left that index below 100, though, at a reading of 95. The future expectation index jumped 30 points compared to last month, and that was the highest reading for that index since July of 2023, and it sits at a reading of 124.
When asked about their biggest concerns for the upcoming year, producers still point to higher input costs and lower output prices. The trend of fewer producers citing interest rates as a top concern continued this month. ADM on Tuesday postponed a third quarter conference call, saying it would be amending some of its fiscal year statements. The company says the restated filings will include corrections for newly identified errors in the way it reported sales between the Ag Services and the Oilseeds, Carbohydrate Solutions, and Nutrition business segments. However, it says it doesn't expect any material impact from the revisions. Earlier this year, we told you the Department of Justice was investigating the accounting practices at the nutrition unit of Archer Daniels Midland. In January, ADM announced it was suspending its chief financial officer as part of an internal investigation following a Securities and Exchange Commission inquiry. Now, here's something that's hoped will help keep the food supply safe. The FDA and EPA have both now approved the first antimicrobial treatment for agricultural water used to grow produce. The product will treat pre-harvest ag water against foodborne pathogens like E. coli and Salmonella. Prior to this, chemicals used to treat pre-harvest ag water were limited to managing algae or preventing rot. Experts call it a milestone aimed at bolstering produce safety and reducing foodborne illness risks. Another flash export sale of corn was announced by USDA. Was it enough to push grains higher again Tuesday with uncertainty about the election? I'll have the latest on that coming up. And later we head to Iowa and the latest edition of the Fall Drive. See how one producer is using his location as an advantage in the cattle feeding business. Minnesota is expected to be the next site for a sustainable aviation fuel plant. DG Fuels announcing plans for a $5 billion facility in Moorhead, Minnesota. Now, the company says it expects to produce 193 million gallons a year using agricultural and wood waste. It says the plant will create 650 jobs and have a projected $50 billion in economic impact statewide. 193 million gallons would represent nearly half of the fuel used at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Well, grains ending higher on Tuesday with the livestock futures mix. Jeff Hogendorn is back with analysis. And Jeff, grains to the plus side, it looked like maybe some squaring ahead of the election. Now that that is out of the way, what are we going to be focused on here in the grains in terms of news?
Well, we still have a lot to worry about this week. You got the Fed meeting coming out, and that's been a big driver on the dollar index, and I think it possibly will be again this week. I think you focus on what's coming down the pipe. Do they give us some more hints on that? And then of course WASD coming at the end of the week, Michelle. I think these grain markets are largely just kind of back and forth, trying to feel out which way they want to swing here for the rest of the week here.
Yeah, because Jeff, we're really pretty range bound in all these grains, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I'm a little encouraged by the soybean market, Michelle. You put in that nice bottom there, double bottom around that 980 on the January, and it's been. I'm impressed. Each day the low's a little bit higher, highs sometimes higher. I mean, it's not huge, but I like what I'm seeing there.
So hogs did have a tough down day on Tuesday and Monday, in fact, and it looked like maybe we had a bearish reversal there. Have we put tops in that hog market, do you think?
I think short term for sure. We've got a lot of money, managed money and such into that market. This is the week they're rolling towards the back or exiting, and I can't help but think they're going to exit some. There's also, the cutout's high enough where it's hard to imagine it can go much higher. So that might get a little softer as the week progresses, and the futures are ahead of that a bit here.
But the funds record long in that hog market. And so if they start getting out of those positions, could it go down pretty fast? I mean, are you worried about downside pressure?
It's still a really impressive market. You have to be worried about it when it's at these kind of levels, right? But the index and the cutout, everything is well ahead of the futures today. So that's the one thing that's going to keep supporting this a little bit. I think we can get beat up a bit this week, but don't be surprised unless things are crashing and burning. We might be able to claw our way back a little bit towards the end of the week or into next week.
Thanks so much, Jeff Hogan-Dorn with Professional Ag Marketing, and we'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Starting here with precipitation, and you're seeing that cold front that's throughout this area has a system in front of it. It's causing a long line of rain from Louisiana all the way up into Pennsylvania, and then also some precipitation rain that's in the southeastern United States, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, up into the Carolinas as well. Then continuing throughout the week and into the weekend, you see all of this precipitation in the central United States building and continuing to build. It's got a lot of coverage there, a lot of precipitation throughout the central United States. And then also some precipitation that we're seeing in Oregon and in Washington as well. Now this is all the way through the weekend. This is Saturday there. Let's take a look at our jet stream too. We've got a very deep trough that's in the western United States, and as we move this along, we start to see that trough tries to move east, tries to beat out this ridge that we have over the eastern United States, and it really isn't able to do so. So instead it moves up and over that ridge that we've been seeing in the eastern United States, and then by Tuesday here we start to see kind of levels out for the jet stream, a little bit more level than that deep trough that we've been seeing. And also you're seeing a little bit of a trough trying to build there in the northern United States. Let's take a look at our temperature outlook. This is November 12th to November 18th, and really it splits the United States in half. You're seeing much warmer temperatures on the eastern United States, and then cooler temperatures on the western United States, and really, like I said, splits that in half completely, as you see there. Let's take a look at Duck Springs, Alabama. They've got a high of 77, a low of 61 thunderstorms there. We've got Cow Creek, 58, 26, and then Horse Cave, Kentucky, 71 and 61 for their low.
Still ahead, the latest on the investigation into how a pig contracted avian flu. And later, we continue our series of special reports on the fall drive. See how one producer is building his cattle business and why location is important to him.
AgDay is brought to you by Winfield United. Unlock the full potential of every field with Winfield United crop protection solutions built from decades of research. Built for success, built for you, built for it. Learn more at winfieldunited.com.
We're continuing to work to learn more about this, the first case of avian flu in a pig. As we told you last week, the case was confirmed in a pig in a backyard farm in Oregon. Now, USDA says it was a non-commercial operation and the animals were not intended for the food supply. Officials report the livestock and poultry on the farm shared water sources, housing, and equipment, which in other states has enabled transmission between species. The swine were euthanized and the farm is under quarantine. Farm Journal pork business editor Jennifer Scheich focusing on the issue in the latest pork podcast. She talked with one of the country's top swine influenza experts about how the pig involved could have contracted H5N1.
And so as pigs are rooting, they could potentially get virus from the environment up into their nose, which would not necessarily mean that they were infected, but could just be a transient virus in the nose. Sort of think about getting paint on your hands while you're painting or something like that. It's there, but it isn't really there for very long. But swab collected at the right time might just say, yeah, there was virus in the pig's nose, but we don't know that they were really infected.
Bowman says he wasn't surprised to see the virus show up in pigs, adding it was just a matter of time. Officials say it's important to note that there is no concern about the safety of the nation's pork supply as a result. You can listen to more of Jennifer's conversation about H5N1 in swine on the Pork Podcast right now on Farm Journal's YouTube channel. A new look at the pork industry says that despite improvements in profits, global pork producers are still cautious about herd rebuilding. That's the key takeaway from a report from Rabo Research. It says that although pork consumption is going in a positive direction, logistical challenges and potential impacts from a La Nina weather system could further complicate the market. Researchers also say changes in leadership, including here in the U.S., Mexico, and Japan, could create a less supportive trade environment for the pork industry next year. They say biosecurity remains a top priority due to ongoing disease risks. When you think of ranches, you probably think about a lot of cattle in wide open spaces. But one Iowa cattle producer is using his smaller business size to his advantage. See how he does it coming up.
Fall Drive on AgDay is brought to you by ViraShield, a research-proven, safe, and powerful line of inactivated vaccines. ViraShield provides comprehensive protection against up to 13 respiratory and reproductive pathogens.
The cattle feeding business is unique in Iowa. Instead of the large feedlots spanning tens of thousands of head, the state has many smaller farmer feeders. I visited with one next-gen producer who's using that size as a competitive advantage as we continue our look at the fall run. This family-owned custom yard feeds 4,000 calves and yearlings year-round from all over the U.S., in part due to the attractive corn prices found in western Iowa.
Especially over the last couple drought years, our corn basis has been significantly better, more favorable to the cattle feeder up here than it has been down there.
Plus, the availability of DDGs and corn they buy from local farmers enhances their closeouts.
So grow a lot of silage and then purchase all of our grains, and then feed byproduct from the local ethanol plants around. There's a handful in this area. Makes it fairly easy to get a good buy on that. That's also one of our advantages in the Midwest.
Lauritson's market cattle primarily on a negotiated basis, which he says often helps the northern cattle basis to run premium to the south.
We've been able to sell our fat cattle higher, several dollars higher at certain weeks. It seems like that's great. A lot of times we do have higher quality cattle up here. They get fed more corn. The packers like those. I guess it all relates.
One of the obvious challenges is climate, especially wintertime in Iowa.
Besides the markets, the weather is our biggest challenge. You never know what it's going to bring.
Before the snow flies, they'll be receiving the fall cattle run.
We'll get a few out of the west, some balling calves, and some locally here. And so we'll start weaning those soon when they come in.
Which makes a comprehensive animal health program important for risk management. Yet they treat every pen on an individual basis.
So we work with our veterinarian closely and put together protocols for vaccination on receiving end of things, and then also a treatment protocol.
As a farmer feeder, they also try to provide all the amenities of a bigger yard, yet pay attention to details.
Things like shades in the summer, bedding in the winter, concrete aprons, just keeping the pens scraped and clean, keeping those cattle comfortable. It all shows up, when it comes down to cost of gain. Hopefully we're a little bit more competitive in the market that way by doing the little things right.
Ty was fortunate enough to come back to run the feedlot after college in 2018, and it's permitted for 12,000 head, so there is room to grow in the future.
It's maybe not as easy as just building more pens and feeding more cattle or picking up more acres. You know, we got labor and different things like that, markets, it all, you know, how much are you willing to do? I guess in my case, I would like to grow and feed more cattle here.
Hopefully the cattle market will stay strong long enough to provide that opportunity. And that's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Michelle Rook. Have yourself a great day.